60-second adventures in astronomy. Number 8. Dark matter. What's the matter with dark matter? Fritz Zwicky was a Swiss astronomer who could probably get you 81 points on a triple word score in Scrabble. In the 1930s, he noticed that galaxies within clusters were zooming around far quicker than their mass would logically dictate. So he figured that there must be some extra mass in there, some sort of dark, invisible matter slurping around the universe. He imaginatively called this dark matter. But the problem is trying to prove it, because unlike other dark things, you can see right through this stuff, and this gave Zwicky another idea. According to Einstein's theory of general relativity, the more mass something has, the more it magnifies and distorts objects that you can see through it. So by studying the distortion of distant galaxies, we can calculate that there must be some extra mass between us and them. But because we can't see it, touch it, or weigh it, it's not surprising that we can't figure out exactly what it is. And that's what the matter with dark matter is. It makes up most of the mass in the universe, but when it comes to knowing the details, we're still in the dark. 60-second adventures in astronomy. Number 9. Dark energy. Why is the universe expanding? Albert Einstein was absolutely certain the universe was stable, but he couldn't work out why his snazzy new relativity equations suggested that it was contracting. So Einstein figured space must have an inbuilt tendency to fling itself apart, which would balance out the pull from gravity. This flinging outness got called the cosmological constant and meant the universe could be kept static, which was great, until it was proved by Edwin Hubble that the universe is in fact expanding, and that cosmological constant became what Einstein described as the biggest blunder of my career. Then, in 1998, scientists discovered that the universe was not only expanding, but that expansion was actually getting faster. So either space does have a tendency to fling itself apart, or there must be some other hidden weird stuff in the universe causing it, referred to as dark energy. Astronomers are looking for it right now by measuring tiny kinks in space. And in its simplest form, this dark energy is pretty much a cosmological constant. So Einstein was right all along, apart from the time he said he'd blundered. The big thicko. 60-second adventures in astronomy. Number 10. Special relativity. Does time fly when you're having fun? In 1905, Albert Einstein introduced the theory of special relativity, which said that if the speed of light is constant, then people must experience time differently. Which may sound impossible, but Richard Feynman later showed that you can prove it with just lights and mirrors. If you set up two mirrors, one of which had a flash bulb and a detector on it, you could build a clock which ticked every time the flash was reflected back to its original source. It would keep time perfectly, though it would make a slightly annoying alarm clock. But if you make this clock go past you very quickly, the light has further to travel, and since light always travels at the same speed, the moving clock runs slower than when it was at rest. So though time might not fly when you're having fun, a moving clock does tick more slowly than the observer's stationary clock. Which may have changed the way we see the universe, but doesn't always make for a good excuse. 60-second adventures in astronomy. Number 11. The Large Hadron Collider. The Large Hadron Collider is a high-energy particle accelerator which is being used to help us understand the origins of the universe. Some people complained that by trying to recreate the Big Bang, the collider could accidentally create another universe, which could make things a bit cramped, or worse still, create a black hole into which we all disappear. But luckily the collider isn't trying to recreate the Big Bang itself, just what happened shortly afterwards, by staging collisions that are continually produced all over the universe quite naturally. Some of these collisions have amazingly confirmed the presence of the mysterious Higgs boson particle. So is it safe? Well, if you stuck your head in it, the needle-thin beam would easily kill any living tissue it passed through. And in 1978, Russian scientist Anatoly Bugorsky accidentally got shot through the head by a proton beam, and even though he luckily survived, it wasn't good for him. So it's probably best not to stick your head into a hadron collider of any size, because at the very least you'd have to live with the fact that you'll forever be known as that guy who stuck his head in the Large Hadron Collider. 60-second adventures in astronomy. Number 12. Black holes. DIY tip 34. How do you make yourself a black hole? A black hole occurs when something has so much mass in such a small space that nothing can escape its gravitational pull, not even light. In 1931, Subramanian Chandrasekhar calculated that if a star is big enough, when its fuel runs out, there is nothing to stop gravity from making its core collapse to create a black hole. Unfortunately for Chandrasekhar, his contemporaries, like Sir Arthur Eddington, just didn't believe him. But it turns out he was right, and in 1983 he eventually won a Nobel Prize for it. So if a star is big enough to begin with, when it collapses it becomes so dense that its gravitational pull won't let objects or light escape. In fact, you'd make a black hole if you crushed any object until it was small and dense enough. But you don't always have to crush something to make a black hole. The bigger one is, the less dense it needs to be. So you could make one out of tap water, though the required amount will fill the space between the Sun and Jupiter, and sadly there's not enough water in the galaxy for that. So for you DIY enthusiasts, you'll probably have to order it in specially. 60-second adventures in astronomy, number 13, taking a galactic census. How do you take a census in space? Keeping track of millions of stars is quite a tricky job, especially as they are constantly moving. Luckily, the new Gaia spacecraft is coming to the rescue, from a position of about 1.5 million kilometers from the Earth, ready to do a whole lot of measuring. With its 2 optical telescopes, Gaia will be able to map over 1 billion stars by measuring minute changes of position against the background of other stars. This is known as parallax. And as well as measuring how old and bright they are, by measuring their Doppler shifts, it can tell us whether those stars are moving towards us or away from us. And if that's not impressive enough, by measuring the bending of starlight by the sun's gravitational field, it will be able to test Einstein's theory of general relativity. In the end, Gaia will deliver us a map of the galaxy. And not just any map. It will be in 3D, show us how everything is moving, and help us get a better understanding of how the whole thing began and where it's heading. So taking a census in space will be a much more realistic proposition. 60-second adventures in astronomy. Number 14, Gaia and the killer asteroids. If Hollywood has taught us one thing, it's that an asteroid crashing into the Earth is not exactly something to look forward to. The asteroids most likely to attack us are the Aten and Apollo asteroids, the ones with an orbit closest to our own. Talk about annoying neighbours. And unfortunately, these asteroids are pretty difficult to keep track of, because to see them from the Earth, you'd have to look directly towards the Sun. Fortunately, the Gaia spacecraft is going to be positioned 1.5 million kilometres beyond the Earth at a point where gravity will keep it in a fixed orbit. This is the second Lagrangian point, or L2 to its friends. From this vantage point, Gaia can look back towards the Sun to spot any potentially dangerous asteroids that we may otherwise have missed. Like a lookout in the crow's nest, or Kevin Costner in The Bodyguard. But while it's obviously good to know if a killer asteroid is indeed on the way, the next challenge will be what we're going to do about it if Gaia spots one.